Welcome to another riveting edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino in full vacation mode with my partner in crime, the great, the one and only, the granddaddy of data, Bob Sloan from S3 Data, the number one independent data provider on the Bloomberg network. That's S3. Did I say S1? Because I think of you as number one. That's why I said S1, but it's S3 Partners.
Well, we'll take S1. Let's take S1. Any letter with the number one next to it, we love it.
And it is number one. That's why I conflated number one, S1. S3 is the number one independent data provider on the Bloomberg network and the best independent data provider for trading there is that mankind has ever invented. And the inventor is my partner, which I'm very proud of, Bob Sloan. Bob, great to see you, even though we're both virtual, and it's because you and I work really hard and we need to take a few days off. We have wives that demand it, and that's what both of us are doing. You in the Hamptons and me at an undisclosed location in the Deep South. I want to read something to you, Bob.
I got to tell you, you saying I'm at an undisclosed location in the Deep South. Man, oh man, if you were a fiction writer, you chase that all the way across the state.
Some people
across the state.
You should know, Bob. Some of my critics accuse me of being a fiction writer because it's my reporting as being fiction, so that I am a fiction writer. So just so you know, there's a little bit of that. I want to read something to you that appeared just the other day in CNN. I'm like, I don't know how I generate headlines like this by the brilliant journalists at CNN. This was like yesterday, I believe, June 8th. Today's the 10th, so it's Monday. Here's what CNN wrote about me. Around noon on Sunday, Fox Business Network's Charles Gasparino declared on X, "I hate the stolen election stuff from the president, ... Just 2 hours later, though, Gasparino himself was entertaining the idea that an election is being stolen. After former GOP rep Adam Kinzinger noted that President Donald Trump is claiming last week's election in California is rigged, Gasparino responded, "Maybe it is. There is zero evidence that there's anything fraudulent about the election results in California. As CNN's Alex Michelson has explained, the state's ballot counting process takes a long time because of how its elections are run. The late counted mail ballots have typically favored Democrats in large part because President Trump, who is the root of all evil at CNN, has turned Republicans against voting by mail." I don't know, man. I mean, Jesus, I didn't think I said anything that's consequential. By the way, maybe it is could mean maybe it isn't, right? Let's play that logical game in a little bit.
What kind of country? You're in the middle of Silicon Valley, right? You're in the middle of technologically advanced state. And when we do our elections, we go crazy when they're not fair. But when you jam voters in 15 days after they take the ballot, and somehow the election's still live, it just doesn't.
This is where why the mainstream media is sort of. I mean, we're going to get into Bari Weiss's tenuous tenure over at CBS and soon maybe CNN in a bit, but this is why the media is searching. One reason why it's searching for a business model. It's not just the business model; it's the business. They've stopped being sort of purveyors of information, and they've become very sort of obviously political. I mean, this story is stupid. You have lots of mail-in ballots. Probably the easiest thing to commit fraud on is a mail-in ballot. Let's be real clear here, right? Right. One of the things that made the sort of part of the election denialism that we saw from in 2020 so absurd is that they were trying to say that people were changing the ballots in the machines, which is crazy, you know. But these are mail-in ballots. These are easily duplicated, and you could commit fraud, and and who knows who's checking the authenticity. We have none of that, and this is in a state which is the home of Silicon Valley, which we're talking about AI all the time, about how AI is going to ramp up the intelligence to some massive level, and you can't systematize this thing through an AI model or some sort of technological model. We don't have people like weighing in, dumping gazillions of ballots at the last minute. And we are talking about the LA mayor's race, right? I mean, come on. I mean, and by the way,
this phone could capture and run an entire election
right
off of his phone, no doubt.
And you know what? It can authenticate the person. Do you know that you can probably, I read this in the Journal. I've not independently confirmed this, but the Journal, Bob, made the point that they count as voter ID in California gym memberships. Now you tell me, gym memberships? Illegal immigrants can work out. I mean, I'm assuming. What do you think about that, Bob?
Look, I hope Steve Hilton wins, and then you can get.
He's not going to win. You know that.
Yeah, maybe not. But
I think so many of the normal people left. The Democrats. I mean, listen. I like I said, I hate election denialism. I thought Joe Biden won 2020. I mean, Trump had a lot of headwinds between COVID. Mail-in ballots, though, are a problem. I mean, listen, if you're an able-bodied human being, you should show up from one day with your ID, and it should be a driver's license or something like that, and vote. Okay? Not like, you can mail it in. We got a guy over here saying maybe it's good, maybe it's not. This is just absurd. And you should do it one day, unless you're disabled or in the military and you're overseas. I mean, there's ways that we've done this in the past. This whole notion of mail-in ballots, like, up to forever you can vote is stupid. And
well, then why gerrymander the districts if this is what you're going to go do?
I mean, it's just the whole thing is a joke.
Right?
I mean, we're getting into silliness here, and I just think the media, when they play these stories, like, I mean, think about this. Just 2 hours later, though, Gasparino himself was entertaining the idea that the election is being stolen, because I said maybe it is. How dumb is that of a story?
It's dumb because no one in markets cares. You got SpaceX pricing this Friday.
That's true.
No one gives a shit about the mayor's race. I honestly don't.
Well, I think some people do. I think no one gives a shit, in the sense that California might be a lost cause, and I think you're right about that. So many people have left. It's almost a non-factor in public discourse, except for among journalists. I mean, and slowly New York is becoming a non-factor with Mondami, and with the writing on the wall, you just leave, and that's why people are leaving. And Jamie Dimon could say, hand Zohran Mondami as many books about entrepreneurialism and public-private partnerships as he wants, which is what he did, and it won't change the fact that Zohran Mondami is a dyed-in-the-wool communist, Marxist, and not quite smart. He's ideologically smart, I'm sure, but he's not policy smart, and he's not going to learn on the job.
No, I beg to differ. He's very smart policy-wise. Bezos' business is to say, if I can do your business at a 2% margin advantage, eventually I will put you out of business. Okay. Mondani's saying, housing, if I basically make it so that the people that have the mortgages, the bank has to beat the mortgage. I get the property for free, and I give it to my cronies who give me back that money. He's got nothing on Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, but that economic model will fall apart. It fell apart in the Soviet Union. It'll fall apart. Once you lose your tax base, you're done. I mean, and that's what's going on in New York. And it's been a progressive slide. You know, I blame the moderate Democrats, and
Totally.
I'm not gonna name them. I go out, we have dinners with them, and I hear them kibitzing about Trump. Oh, he said this, he did that, he's doing this.
Can
And
I,
these
can
idiots,
I
and
get
these, just let me make this point, Bob. These idiots don't realize that Trump's not affecting their life in a negative way. Their lives, the reason why they could barely afford to live in New York, between the housing, the taxes, putting their kids through school, through private school, because you can't send them to the shitty public schools. The reason why it's unsafe on the streets, it has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the leading the Democratic Party, the ruling Democratic Party, the moderates like Andrew Cuomo, who gave in to the left for many years, and until they got a full-fledged commie in Gracie Mansion, and now Bob, you know, and it's the media that, except for the New York Post, which actually covers New York City with a gimlet's eye more than the New York Times. I'm proud to be part of that ecosystem there. You know, you wouldn't know it by reading most of the media and listening to it. And you know, that brings us to Bari Weiss. You know, listen, there's not a day that goes by that I read about that Bari Weiss isn't on the front page of the Post or any place else. I mean, it's just like nonstop commentary about her, because she's doing something audacious. She's saying, I want more moderate. I want a more moderate political slant to my news. And somehow, and by the way, I was put in place here by the new owners. And guess what? They said I should bring in my own team. This is like, and Scott Pelley, who I met a few times, he's a nice guy, I guess. He thinks that's something wrong with that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could do a lot of jobs. Been working at a lot of places. As you know, Bob, you survived Wall Street. People, when you get a new boss, he brings in his people, right?
Totally.
The way it goes, you know.
New broom sweeps clean.
And by the way, you either get with the program or you go home.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, you don't make a big thing out of it because that's the way it goes.
That is the way it goes.
And if 60 Minutes was doing such a great job, it wouldn't need a huge lead-in from the NFL to produce the numbers that it boasts about. No offense, you know. That thing is people watch that generally during the football season. There's a reason for that. So I've never met Bari Weiss. We follow each other on Twitter. I listen to her podcast occasionally. I just don't see what she's doing here that's so radical. And if you read the sort of navel gazing coverage, it's like, you know, I saw something the other day that they want to bring in a business person. That's how they described it. To help her with let her do other things. And, you know, why is that like such a big story? Of course they want to bring in a business person. I mean, you know, it's just, by the way, I doubt that's really a business person. My guess is they're going to bring in somebody that's an operations person who understands literally how to do TV news in a more granular way, because that's not her forte. She was a print opinion journalist. She's very smart, so they want her to think 30,000 feet and deal with talent, but they need someone, you know, who understands the newsroom, who has to understand how to do packages. You know, they need someone like a
I see it coming. You know what I see coming?
What?
I dropped the name over here. I'll pick it up off the floor. Oh, it's Max Myers.
Ah, yes, I do see that. They need someone like Max, and we should point out Max is our friend. He's a top producer at CNBC. He's done Squawk Box. He's done everything. He's done Fast Money. He's been around. He was my producer for a time during the financial crisis, which he was invaluable. And I broke a lot of stores during the financial crisis. He was right there with me.
Now that I would understand.
Yeah, because he understands both digital and print, and excuse me, digital and linear TV. So that's kind of what they need. And don't be surprised if they reach out to him. Bob. So we should talk about markets a little bit. We're on the verge of war again, I guess.
Well, a couple of things from our last show. One, we ended up on the KOSPI, showing you how that is it's the perfect picture for where the markets were.
We should point out the KOSPI is the South Korean exchange, right?
Right. And how short sellers were digging in. The KOSPI is way up. And if you look the last 2-3 sessions, we had that called right on. KOSPI is down like 10%. Most of these semiconductor stocks are down quite a bit. So we took you to a foreign market to show you that adjacencies matter. All these markets are tied up in one way or the other, and we thought that was a good starting point to make a call on semis, and that's worked out very well.
Right. Speaking about short sellers, my free Andrew left story goes a lot.
Did you get a call from the Justice Department?
No, not yet. Again, I don't buy individual stocks. My broker said that I can get in on the SpaceX IPO. Obviously, not going there for a lot of reasons. But he played. Again, my problem with the Andrew Left prosecution is that I still don't get the harm. What is the ultimate harm of him moving the market? Particularly if his calls, particularly if he's not betting against himself, his calls are long-term right, at least the ones that they've cited in the indictment.
He's gussing up the people.
Yeah.
She's gussing up the people to go the other way, and the price action is benefiting him.
But it's benefiting anybody that follows his research too.
Well, he's saying get short more of the stock. They do it, price falls, he covers.
They can cover too.
Yeah, but he's the one with the initial position. He's much more grounded into the stock.
Well, that's true, but his calls are pretty good. I still think that
you have this thing where if he's right, then that kind of relieves him of proper trading rules. I'm on the a total opposite end of that. Just because you're right doesn't mean you can ignore common sense, and he ignored common sense.
There was something unsettling what he did, but I don't think it's a criminal charge. It's a civil charge in my view. And I think he's got a good chance. I know his people will be reaching out to the Trump people for a pardon. I wouldn't be, if I hear that he will be pardoned, or if you hear he will be pardoned, well, you heard it here first. I think there's a good shot at it. And just based on what
schemes overreach, they're way worse pump and dump schemes, because essentially that's what they dressed them up as. Like, look, you said the stock was going to go up, you had the position, and once it started going down, you covered, right?
And usually the pump and dumps that I deal with mainly are shit companies. These were highly liquid companies. These were mostly,
but the tactics were the same, and that's what got them, right?
Well, like this, the typical or the sort of conventional pump and dump that was developed by the Stratton Oakmonts. Remember the bucket shops back in the day? The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Buffett was crap companies, right? Companies that didn't really exist. Maybe on paper they were incorporated, and you pump them up, and then people bought it, and then you dumped on the high, and then the thing falls to zero, and so. There's nothing there, but this is not like that. Be that as it may, Left is this is a story we're going to be coming back to probably throughout our risk and return broadcast. Bob, you have some stuff this week, right? From your beach house. I'm sure you're on the beach studying with your Bloomberg terminal, in the sand and your S3 data feed, pumping stuff out. What do you got? Revisit Guidewire a little bit, Bob. You was it a short play?
Yeah. All the picks are, just you're playing for the pop off the earnings. It's a 1 day trade.
And this popped, obviously.
Yeah. Good. A lot of these things, you can see the volatility build up as earnings are announced, and so that's what we're looking for.
So, yeah. So why aren't the markets going nuts?
I think they are.
I think yeah. I put my head down and I didn't see it. What are they doing?
You got the 10-year up at 456. You got semis and technology have been slammed 2 out of 3 days.
You got inflation up to 4.2%.
Right. And this comes back to, what is Kevin Warsh going to do as his first move?
Nothing.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. His first move might be to tighten the balance sheet, but also
balance sheet. Yes, I could see that.
But also cut rates.
That's interesting. Does he have he doesn't have the votes for cutting rates though.
Well, he's got a strategy. And the strategy is a good one. We got to have dry powder. But we got to make that dry powder in an environment of low rates. And if he does that, the tech stocks, which are all interest rate sensitive, will take off like great.
That's a bold call.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting call.
I could see him trying. I wonder if he has the votes though.
Well, if that's what you want to do and that's what your leader wants to do, then the governors have a responsibility to support that vision. To
a certain extent. Yeah, I could see that. Well, that would be fascinating. Here's the problem with the way Trump has executed this war. He keeps pushing off the inevitable. We either have to get out, right? Or we have to finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Finishing the job is going to be volatile for the markets. By just delaying it and delaying it and delaying it, they're just stringing us along. So we're going to get a spike in 10-year yields. It's coming if he does what he needs to do, and he needs to start ramping up the bombing or get the hell out. So if you get the hell out, then Iran has a put literally on oil through the Straits of Hormuz. And that'll add to the price of oil, long term. That's not a solution. If we don't get out, you got to bomb. I mean, you got to start leveling the place, and we're going to get some short-term volatility. And I think, this waiting game is just delaying the inevitable, and it's doing nobody any good. And so what do you think? You think he starts this week? Does someone whisper in his ear, you look weak and you got to do what you got to do or go home?
I think that started a long time ago.
Well, he hasn't moved. I mean, proportional strikes. I mean, what does that mean?
Means that we have some good things at the table and we don't want to flex too much muscle to lose whatever we have at the table. It's not the best negotiating position. When you're asking somebody, please don't do anything because we think we're close, not so great.
And then they shoot down one of our Apaches. I mean, the whole thing is just absurd. But anyway, that is something I think traders need to keep an eye on because, you almost can't go home right now. You got to escalate. Escalation is going to have an impact on the 10-year and the 30-year, and that's going to impact stocks. Now, whether it's long-term, short-term, I think if you get it done with fast, it's shorter term. but that's something you got to like put in your calculus. Maybe that's the sort of catalyst for Warsh to cut rates by saying, we got this market volatility, I need to cut. As I tighten the balance sheet, help me out here, guys. Maybe that could be it. I wouldn't doubt that. But clearly, that's a overhang that I think traders need to keep in mind. Bob, are you ready to go with your stuff?
Yeah, we are. We want to talk about last week. Last week we talked about the KOSPI and the KOSPI being, so overdone, and that the shorts are hanging in, and if you had followed that market, it really moved around the earth and caught the American market by surprise, particularly last Friday when everything sold off, right? So bonds sold off, tech sold off, pretty much everything sold off. Bitcoin sold off. So you have an up treasury tape in a down tech market. It's a pretty unusual move, right? That's why everybody's trying to figure out what CPI is going to say today. And then, on top of that, we've been looking at APAC, short interest. And, you've seen an uptick in Japan, in Korea, in, lots of places. And, the longs and shorts have been fairly well tightly put together. And it's a tight positive correlation between the two. So, it has a bit of a convert arb story to tell. A lot of things like Wolfspeed have gone up, as the hedging becomes lighter and lighter, the stock's gone up. So,
explain the convert arb story. That's kind of an interesting trading dynamic. Sam was talking about it a couple of weeks ago. I tried to immerse myself in exactly what is convert arb. I think I kind of get it.
Well, it's for companies that have hard. They don't necessarily want to go to the high yield market, right?
Right.
And they're willing to give up some measure of equity and pay out some form of coupon to issue debt. So the way it works is that for a technology company, and the way the hedge funds like it, is they'll have a bond that, let's say, says it'll be up 80, meaning it has to go up 80% before the equity kicks in. And people like that because most of these stocks are technology stocks that are very, very, very volatile. And the whole point there is to capture that volatility. And so everybody's happy, right? The hedge funds are able to raise money for the company. The hedge funds get a juicy trade that they can trade. As the vol picks up and down, they're able to adjust their delta, or how much stock they want to short versus the convert itself, and then see how the gamma, right, the change in delta, moves over time, and see how they can make some money off the direction of the stock and how it moves.
That's why they pay you the big bucks, dude. But you get it all here. You get dumbed down stuff from me, and you get the high level stuff from Bob.
But there's we've got a couple of different things that are on there. We talked about the KOSPI shorts last week. They clawed back about $2 billion, which has been a great trade for them. And then a lot of institutional longs have bought Wolfspeed, and is supporting the rise of the stock. So that's important for Wolfspeed.
I love the name Wolfspeed.
Yeah. Maersk continues to be at the top of the squeeze risk for the shipping sector. And one of the guys on Twitter, we said we'd do it. We look at the TLT, which is 20+ year Treasury bond, and see what's going on there. And the short interest has actually gone through the price quite a lot.
That's interesting.
And then now it's back down. I'd say 3 weeks ago, there was quite a spread between short interest being higher and the price of the stock being lower. So now they're right on top of each other. So I think people are expecting higher longer. That's what we take out of that.
Okay.
And the whole thing, I don't know about you, I think the last thing we could talk about is SpaceX.
You saw the story I did on SpaceX where the exchanges kind of like the NASDAQ and the Russell, they kind of relaxed their rules to allow
they gerrymandered the rules.
Now, ironically, S&P came out and didn't, right?
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. Even they didn't, as we wrote about, we wrote about that they might, and then they came out and said they didn't. Maybe we embarrassed them a little bit. I did a big piece in the Post. But let me ask you this, Bob, this seems like classic market top, or are we just in this area where AI is just...
Let's take a bet. 3 months from now, what will be the price of SpaceX?
I don't know. What do you think?
Down 20.
Interesting. Now, does it come back?
Who the hell knows?
Facebook came back.
I know. That's what it says.
I mean, they had a rough time. They brought in new management. They brought in Sheryl Sandberg. I remember I covered all that. I covered their really kind of bizarre IPO. They had some problems at the open? Didn't they have some issues?
Yeah, the thing opened up 109 and it sank to 16.
Yeah, it was just nuts. And there was an issue with the underwriter and the exchange, NASDAQ. I mean, I just remember the whole thing. Underwriter, I think, was Morgan Stanley. I got to go back to my notes on this. It shows you how many battles I've been through. I think there was a huge fight between the underwriter and the exchange. I think the exchange wasn't ready for the volatility. Do you remember? It was a tough open, right? Wasn't that part of the whole thing?
Something like that.
And we need to go back to check that out. I just remember interviewing James Gorman about it at the time, and the people who ran NASDAQ. It was just James Gorman was the CEO of Morgan Stanley. They were the lead underwriters. So we'll come back to, when is the IPO? It's this week, right?
Friday.
So we will address this and do a comparison, I guess, with Facebook, and just to sort of try to layer the circumstances around both for the next one. But be that as it may, the viewer out there should recognize that these IPOs get off to can get off to a really rocky start. Management adjusts and they come back so often. Okay, so just remember, some of this is being a long-term player in the stock. Don't expect to flip it at the open if you're getting a retail allotment, right? That's priced at the market right. I mean, is that?
Well, yeah.
I mean, the insiders are going to make a lot of money on this thing, right?
Yes, they will.
Elon will be $1 trillion man, maybe, right?
There's so much money.
It's like monopoly money.
$75 billion.
I know.
Biggest
Huge IPO.
It's like 3 times the biggest.
I know. It's just nuts. 75 billion. Ooh. It's like 75 million used to be a lot of money. Now 75 billion, billions, millions. Bob, I think that's it for today, for the weekend edition of Risk and Return.
Yeah, I think that's it. I still want to go toe to toe with you about left.
Well, why don't you do it a little bit? Let's go. Let's do 5 minutes of toe to toe about Andrew Left.
Why is it so hard to basically say the guy's a scumbag and he did bad trades?
Oh, come on.
No, I'm serious. Like he was basically using. He was basically setting these guys up. He had the position. He knew
he didn't set up anybody. He didn't have to follow his rules. I mean, he was, his calls. He put out calls. They turned out to be right mostly. He sold before his price started. He definitely tried to move the markets.
He was right. He's trying to move the markets. And all he needed was a good compliance department, and he wouldn't be sitting in jail.
Yeah, I don't. It was kind of interesting. I remember when I was at CNBC, it was still a unit of GE, and Jack Welch had just, the former legendary CEO of GE, had just retired. And I saw him at San Pietro having lunch, and he called me up. He goes, "Charlie, get over here." He goes, "Now, I want to tell you something." He got right in my face with this crooked little finger. He goes, "I want to tell you something. Don't you be trying to move the fucking markets." Maybe he had that Boston accent, that New England. "You don't try to move the fucking markets or you're going to get your fucking head blown off. You got it?" And I said, "Jack, I'm not trying to move the markets. I'm reporting and the markets are moving on my report." He goes, I'm just telling you, don't try to move the fucking markets. And then I said, "Jack, I swear I'm not." And I wasn't. It was very volatile. I was reporting a lot. I was on CNBC all the time. My reporting was 99.99% on the money, all the time. And people followed my calls. Or there was not really calls. They were reporting about, bailouts and things like that. All the crap that was going on. Who's going under. And then he goes, "And by the way, good job." And that was that. But when you try to move markets, you will eventually get your brains blown out, is what he was saying. And whether it's, legal or illegal or gray area, the minute you go there, you're asking for trouble. And that's why you said Wall Street firms have these restricted lists, and
But here's the point. You bring up a really good one. Did Andrew Left understand that there were rules governing his behavior? Did he have them?
Remember, these rules are vague.
Well, but so what? Now so
there's a prominent hedge fund guy.
No. In other words, he's like Bill Belichick, right? Bill Belichick knows every friggin' rule there is and uses it to his advantage every single year. Now, if you're telling me it's like that, well, then, okay, it's permissible, but it's not like that. It's a very sloppy interpretation of what actually are the rules. And then they go, "Yeah, I made money, so it's good."
Steve Cohen, in a deposition, and this was on a civil deposition, was asked about insider trading, because remember, SAC Capital was shut down, his initial place, because of allegations of SAC. Well, not allegations. They did a plea deal with the Justice Department.
Yes.
Right. And, a lot of the cases against SAC were overturned later on. I should point that out. But Steve Cohen was asked about insider trading. He said it's very gray. There is what is, and he's right about that. And I think that's kind of, there's an analogy here. This is gray stuff in a lot of respects. If you don't lie, if your research is pretty sound, if you're not trading against yourself, it gets very gray. And I think that is the problem I have, making laws based on, remember, there is no laws here. Like insider trading, there was never a law. There was an interpretation of the 33 and 34 Act about manipulation and, insiders selling stock based on confidential information that was both enforced by the SEC on a civil basis and then increasingly over the years prosecuted. You mentioned last week the famous Citarello case.
Yep.
There was many more. Ray Dirks there was a Dirks case back in the day.
100%.
There was many others. And, so when you're dealing with stuff like this, it becomes very gray. It's an interpretation of the court precedent. And I think that's kind of where left finds himself. A lot of this there's nothing in there that says, oh, if you can't move a stock. If you move a stock, you're in big trouble. It's nothing really in there that says you can't purposely move a stock. There's stuff in there that you can't lie. You can't use duplicitous. And you can see the language. You can't use like fraudulent means to move a stock. But if you really believe in your opinion, and if your opinion turns out to be right, it helps you. It's hard to prove fraud, and I think that's where Andrew left for the most part found himself, in my view. If you look at it, if you understand stuff, and now he got convicted by a jury. Let's face it, in one trade, this guy made many multiples of a lot of those people earn in a year. You know what I'm saying? Many multiples, maybe a lifetime in one trade, not even a lifetime.
So I forgot, in federal, you get no jury selection, right? They basically line them up and that's it. Like your lawyers don't qualify them.
That he couldn't. That's interesting. What they call that, voir dire? I don't.
Voir dire, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Line them up and that's it. You don't get to throw anybody out because their uncle got taken by an inside trader. Too bad.
We'll see. This case isn't over yet. He's gonna appeal. Probably lose on appeal, I would think. And maybe
I'll tell you what. If he wins the appeal, we should have him back on the show.
Okay.
How about that?
I got the. I asked him. He said he'd take it under consideration. So we'll bring him back.
Yeah, our kind of track record with those folks, we have never sold them one set of data in the history of the firm. They're just not our folks.
Yeah, no, S3 has got more than just compliance. It's got integrity. I mean, it's that's why you're proud to be part of the team. This is, I don't need a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer telling you what to do. It's just, you know what smells and what doesn't. And yes, and I do believe what Andrew did is unsettling. I don't know if it's criminally illegal. Mm-hmm. And that's my problem here, that we criminalized market behavior that, that could use a little SEC,
more
guidance, and, you can't do this. You need to, wait a week. I don't know. There could be something here other than you going to jail for 20 years over something like this.
But that's not that. The headline is the maximum's 20, but I mean, how much was it put? Right? How much was it worth? And this is its first time.
Yeah, 7. 7 is too much.
I'll get like 2 to 3 years. By the way, 1 day is too much, but it's not.
Right. 1 year. I don't think
it's not 20.
I know, but he's probably going to get 7. Okay.
I'll take the under.
Okay. I think he's going to get 7. Well, maybe, you never know. The judge might say, due to the judge might have read my column, for all I know.
He read your column, he'd be out now.
Maybe. Well, let's leave it there. Let's get out now and enjoy the beach.
Let's do that.
We'll see each other next week in studio, probably, right?
Yes.
At S3, at the worldwide headquarters of S3 Partners in Midtown Manhattan. I'll be there with Bob live next week, next Wednesday, next Wednesday. We're going to reconnect and I'm sure we'll have a lot to chew about on. We'll have the SpaceX IPO. We'll have some of Bob's actionable calls. We'll have some of my headlines, which should always be interesting. Again, thank you for tuning in to a vacation edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from Fox News, Fox Business, and the New York Post, signing off with my partner in crime, the granddaddy of data of S3 Partners, also S1. He's S1 in my book, Bob Sloan. See you next week, guys.